Okay, I got my super glue here, and I've got me some instant sets. This is great. That sets your super glue off just immediately. You don't have to wait for it. I know it goes off pretty fast anyway, but I'm going to put some inside here. Around that post. Around that post. A little bit out here. A little bit out there. That's all it'll take. I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to get any of that stuff on my solder joint until I get her back on there again. Now to line it back up, there's that one. And there's that one. Put a little more flux on there, just hopefully help it get a better hold. Gotta take a little more solder too. Alrighty. Now I can glue these parts in place. You want that super glue to bleed down into that joint there. Just on the safe side, I'm going to put some in here. This stuff is excellent. You can usually find it down to Hobby Shop. But boy, I tell you, saves you from getting your hands stuck a lot. So there we go. Look at that. Looks great, huh? Okay, next step is adding, let's use this one here. Adding the little wick adjustment and the fuel cap. So let's do the wick adjustment first. That's pretty easy. I'm going to use another little piece of this 20 gauge wire. We're going to bend a circle again. That's not a very good circle. Let's bend another one. Hoping to save that. Come back here. Well, I'll tell you, we're talking about dinky stuff now. Okay, I'm just going to squeeze this together, there, like that. I'm going to set that up there, like that. Now where'd my 18 gauge wire? I'm going to snip me off a little piece. Like that. Not much, just a little piece. Get me some flux. Put it in there, like that. going to get me some solder. Get me a lot of solder. Like that. And stick that in that flux. I'm going to get me a tooth or a clothespin right behind Judy in the tin can, because I don't want to burn my fingers. Put a rubber band around that just to hold it that much more. Alright, I'm going to heat this up. Like that. Stick that in the hole. Like that. Hold it straight up. Wait for it to go off. Like that. And that's crooked. You have to kind of experiment around with this, play with it a while to get it just the way you want it. Still not right. Picked it up too soon. Come on, you bugger. There we go. That looks pretty good. Getting a piece of sandpaper here. That looks pretty good, and there, if you can see that.
If you hold it steady.
This is our wick adjustment, okay? So now I need to find my drill. Find the drill. It's about the same size as my wire, which is about like that, I guess. And we want this in about the same position as that one, which is about right there. It's the same size. I guess it's the next size up. Of course, this one will probably be too big. That's generally how things work. Come on, get in there. There we go. Let's just shove that through. It sticks out a little too far, so nip her off here. Push her in. And there we have our wick adjustment. There, it went in even farther, which is better. So now I'm going to put me a little super glue there. Set her off. Okay. Next thing is the fuel cap. There's that fickled hand coming in here. What do you think, huh? It's looking good? I think so. Now we got to make the fuel cap. Okay, I've got me a piece of 3/16 inch dowel here. I'm going to come up here, just a little bit. You can see how far. And just run me a groove across there. And I'm going to whittle this back. Just like that. And then come back and whittle her down. Like that. Let her doing is we're just creating the post that will hold this cap in place. And stuff here. And hopefully, if I'm real careful, and I have a real sharp knife, and I take my time, that'll pop off of there like that. Now, before I do anything, I'm going to take my super glue, and I'm going to put me a little dollop right there on the top, because this is real fragile. I want that to soak down in there and hold that together. Like that. Okay. Now I can turn that off there. Looks good, looks good. Where's my lantern at? Here it is. So we want this to go right down in the middle there, and we need a drill about that size, which is bigger than this one. Looks like that one will work. Okay, so I want this about right there. Keep it at a slant. Don't worry about this down here, we're going to fill all that in. And that will probably be too. So I'm going to whittle this down to a point, not point, but narrow it down there on towards the end. Like that. See that? And stick that in there. Like that, kind of mash her down. Just like that. Okay? And then I'm going to put a dollop of glue down here in this hole. Force it up in there with my toothpick. Look at that. Now, using a length of the 18 gauge wire again, I'm building me a hook on one end like that. We're making the bail now for the top. And when you bend in these little curves here on the end of your wire to hold the thing here, it's best to bend one way and then bend this one over here up the other way. It just seems to work better that way. At least it does for me. It's a little long. We don't want to bend them closed. Okay, see, you hook this one in like this. Squeeze it together a little more. like that. Like that. Look at there. Now, see how it won't lay down? I'll show you how to fix that. Right about there. Bend your back the other way. That. Let's try it now. Now, once we nip that off here and close it up, we don't want to do that until we get this painted. This we're just going to dip into some gun blowing, and it'll turn it black, which is good. But now, what we have to do is we have to fill up that hole somehow. So, Judy will stop the camera, I'll go look for something to do that. Okay, I got me a piece of 3/8 inch dowel here. Now, just like we did, where are you, with the gas cap there, I went and I whittled this down to where it was the size of the top of here, like that, okay? So this will fit right in there, all right? Now what I'm going to do is, like I did before, I'm going to put some super glue on this so it'll soak down in there. Around that end grain. Set that off. Because I'm going to take this over to the saw, and I'm going to saw it really thin, about like that. Because what I'm making is a cap. Okay, this is what we're making right now. So I'm going to take this over to the saw and hopefully cut that off. You don't need to see. Okay, I told you I was going to cut that thin. Where you can, you can see how thin I cut it, but that super glue held it together. So before I go any farther, I'm going to do this again with super glue, because I definitely don't want that crumbling. Then I'll spray it. Let that go off. See, it goes off immediately. And I'm going to get my sandpaper here. Sand off that fuzz. Well, let's do a test fit here and see what we did. How close we came. Seems a little lopsided on that side there. You could probably skip this step and just fill in that hole if you wanted to. But this will make it look 100% better. Ooh, I like that. That's neat. Okay, so let's just leave that in place. Squirt some super glue in there. Oops, knocked it out. Well, that's locked in place. Now I'm going to get my wire again. I think I'll use, let's use the little stuff this time. Oh, that's solder. What am I doing? Good thing Judy didn't see that. She'd be jumping all over me. This is the 20 gauge wire again. Just building me a loop up here. We're just about finished with this thing. And drill me a hole right down through them. That thing right in there like that. Back it around. Set her up. Now, what do you think? Huh? Is that a little jewel or not? From a spool, 2 spools, an old coat hanger, some wire, some solder, a couple of washers, and a little bit of ingenuity, and you can come up with some pretty neat stuff. Now, I still have to fill in this. I'll just use some epoxy or wood putty or whatever to fill that in. And in the next video, we'll paint this thing, and it'll be done. A fella sent me a question, how do I do it when I do it on a lathe? Well, we're just about running out of battery on the camera, so I'll be quick. All right, I drew me out a little pattern here of what I want to do on the lathe. Here's one I actually turned a long time ago to make a mold when I was thinking about maybe casting these things, but that didn't work out too well. So anyway, that was turned out on a piece of walnut. Here's another real old one. This was a pretty neat looking lantern, except it bubbled on me up here for some reason. Okay, before the battery shut off, we were talking about this lantern here. For some reason it bubbled on me up here, so I never did use this one. This one's been sitting around the shop for quite a few years. But it was one of the first ones I've made. It's missing the little globe adjustment down here too. But it's a neat looking little lantern, but I just wanted to show you that this is an example of one I turned on the lathe. Again, here's my little pattern. I drew this out. Now this is for a bigger piece of Plex rod than the one we just made. So that's why this is a much larger lamp. Now this is just a piece of walnut, grains running up and down, that I use to turn these lamps with. It's about, what, 1 3/4 square. That way I can turn out some pretty good lamps with it, see there? And just with a pair of calipers, or just eyeballing it by taking out one of these old lanterns with the lathe, I could pretty well turn one out. Now, since then, I've gone and I filled in the hole at the bottom using some of this quickwood epoxy, which will work pretty good. If you're wondering why this toothpick's stuck in there, that's to give me something to hold on when I paint the thing. And then once I get her painted and she's all done, I'll be able to pull that toothpick out or cut it off and then fill in that hole if there's one there. And a little dab of red paint and it'll be done. But anyway, I think this turned out terrific. I'm not going to complain about that. That's a fancy little lantern. I just might make a few more of these. Oops, my toothpick fell out. Well, it'll be all right. It'll be okay. So anyway, until next time, we'll paint this thing and see how she looks when she's all prettied up. I'll talk to you later.